Welcome back to Proxamer, everybody, and today we're going to be talking about the GW reveals on how transports work in 10th edition Warhammer 40k, and we're also going to be talking about how the Craftworld Eldar will be affected. So, in this reveal, GW specifically mentioned one of our vehicles, the Falcon, and I personally think this is an awesome change. I think that transports are indeed back. And it was something that I thought about when they first revealed the new vehicle toughness, but I had no idea transport rules themselves would also be that strong to match. So let's go ahead and without further ado, let's dive right into the video. And basically what we're going to be doing in this video today, we're just going to be taking a look at the new GW rules reveal for transports, and we're going to be talking about how these changes will affect the Craftworld Eldar. So the first big change from this edition is now any embarked unit is free to hop out of a vehicle once a transport has moved. So this means you can move your transport and disembark afterward, or you can disembark before it moves, unless the vehicle fell back or advanced, which makes sense. Also, if you do disembark after you move, you can't charge. You can shoot, but you can't make a charge unless they disembark before the vehicle moves. So that's pretty important because basically this stops a lot of units from being able to assault right after they disembark. So unfortunately, as it always has been really, Eldar units probably are not going to be able to move, get out of their transport, then assault. We don't know the rules on Wave Serpents yet, but I'm pretty much thinking that that's just not going to be the case for Wave Serpents. In addition to these new disembarkation rules, open-topped vehicles are getting a firing deck rule, which basically means that many models can fire out of it. However, here's the thing. These shots no longer count as the unit firing it, but as the vehicle firing it. So all rules and buffs will apply to those attacks. So for those Imperial Guard or Orc players out there who are firing their weapons from inside the vehicle, vehicle buffs will count as buffs towards those weapons. And they give us an example of this with the Orc Mechanic. So the Orc Mechanic basically can give a vehicle +1 to hit, and that applies to all the units that can shoot from within. So a lot of Orc vehicles are actually open-topped, which means that they're going to be able to shoot out of the vehicles. And this is really strong. It essentially means that your Orcs are going to be hitting on a 4+. So for anyone who plays Orcs out there, rejoice. I think Orc shooting is definitely back in this edition. And you are going to be obviously wanting this model, this mechanic, because, yeah, 4+ Orc shooting is very good. Also, just because of the fact that being in a vehicle itself gives you more threat range, it's going to be extremely effective on the move as well. They also confirmed that the Land Raider will be getting its assault ramp back, so basically that means that passengers can declare a charge on the same turn they disembark. So you can move, disembark, and then still assault. I think this is going to be a very good thing. Land Raiders are typically slower, but, you know, with a 12-inch move, a 3-inch disembark, or at least I think it's still going to be 3, and a 2d6 charge move, you can be certain that Terminators are going to be a lot more of a threat on the battlefield. They also revealed that Marine vehicles can now carry all types of Space Marines, whether they are Primaris or Firstborn. So this isn't something that really mattered. I always thought it didn't really make sense that certain vehicles could only carry certain units like Primaris or Firstborn. It was a little bit strange, but I'm glad this is a change. This is more of like a quality of life change, to be honest with you. I don't really think this is going to affect balance too much because, to be honest with you, a lot of these vehicles, if you look at their rules and stuff like that, and you look at the units that were being put inside of them, you know, Firstborn versus Primaris, most of the time, in my opinion, you would just want to take a Rhino in this edition anyway. I think this will change now because I think the new transport rules are really good, and things like the Repulsor are very strong. But I really don't think this is going to affect the game in any kind of major way as far as balance goes. Some vehicles also have the rapid deployment ability, so basically faster vehicles can disembark their troops after advancing. That unit still cannot charge, though. It doesn't have the assault ramp ability, so they can't do that. but they can get more threat range out of it. So things like the Taurox has rapid deployment. They also say that things like the Impulsor might have it as well, or will have it. And I'm guessing some Dark Eldar vehicles might have something like this also. But as of yet, that's not confirmed. I'm actually very excited to see what the Dark Eldar transports are going to get. I know they're going to get open-topped, but it would be cool to see them get something else as well. The Chimera is still going to basically have its mobile command vehicle rule, which means it can issue orders, or officers inside can issue orders to units outside of the vehicle, which is pretty good. I think that's basically the same thing as now, except it's a little more streamlined. So that's really cool for guard players. And now we get to what I really care about, which is Eldar, right? So the Falcon got this rule called fire support. So a unit disembarking from a Falcon, or any model with the fire support special rule, gets rerolls to wound against a target that the Falcon hit with a ranged attack. And these are all rerolls. These aren't just rerolls to shooting or rerolls to close combat. These are all rerolls. So whether you're running Dire Avengers, Fire Dragons, or Howling Banshees, if your Falcon shoots and hits something, your unit can reroll its wounds against it. So it's kind of like a mini Doom in a way. And honestly, based on the data sheets that we get from the index, other units might be good too. I know that Howling Banshees, Fire Dragons, and Dire Avengers are going to be excellent choices already, but even things like maybe Striking Scorpions rerolling wounds could be very powerful depending on what they get, and also Dark Reapers. And I think one of the things that makes Dark Reaper so weak in this edition is the fact that, you have to have a penalty to move and shoot. It looks like that's going to be gone. To be honest with you, that penalty of moving and shooting with heavy weapons looks like it's going to be gone for the most part. I may be wrong. We'll have to see the core rules on that, but it hasn't appeared in any of the data sheets so far. So Dark Reapers are still hitting on a 3+, and that has been confirmed with one of the reveals on how weapons work. The Dark Reaper Exarch with the Shuriken Cannon basically still hit on a 3+, which is really cool. And yeah, I'm thinking Dark Reapers out of the back of this thing could be really powerful. Rerolling all of their wounds, hitting on a decent number on a 3+, that's before buffs. And also ignoring cover, right? Because we know Dark Reapers are probably going to ignore cover as well. So that means they're going to basically ignore that +1 armor that units are going to get while in cover. So again, we haven't seen their datasheet, but it's looking pretty decent for Dark Reapers as well, if their datasheet and points values add up. Okay, so how will these changes affect the Craftworld Eldar? So it looks like in general, mechanized lists might be back in a big way with being able to disembark after moving. I think being able to do this with your whole army and having that flexibility is going to make a lot of people take more transports in their lists. And I think this is really going to incentivize mechanized armies once again. And this is especially useful to Eldar Wave Serpents and Falcons that have a high movement characteristic. Again, our faction vehicles move 16 inches a turn. So moving 16 inches and disembarking 3 plus our range, that gives us an insane threat range. That's basically giving our army, or units within those transports, an effective turn 1 alpha strike potential, which is really insane considering what kind of specialized units we have that can deal a lot of damage. And both the Wave Serpent, most likely, because we don't know their datasheet yet, but most likely, and the Falcon will give some pretty solid buffs to the units that disembark from it. And again, this kind of confirms my suspicions that transport-based armies might be making a big comeback, which I have mixed feelings about. I love the transport rules. I like what they did with the Falcon, but the rules seem really powerful. And to be honest with you, unless there's appropriate measures taken to limit some armies from taking too many transports, I fear that we're going to go back to an edition, which I did not like, which was 5th edition, where mechanized transport armies were basically everywhere, and that's all you fought against, right? I don't know if any of you played in the tournament scenes of 5th edition, but I did. And to be honest with you, everybody was running a mechanized list. I was playing Craftworld Eldar. I was running like 6 Wave Serpents and 3 Fire Prisms, right? And then when the Night Spinner came out, I took 2 Night Spinners instead because they were a really good tech against vehicle parking lots. And basically that was it, right? If you were building a list in 5th edition, you basically had to pack your list with as much anti-tank as possible and as much transports as possible. And that was it. And back then, it was honestly easier to kill tanks than it is now. Of course, there was more tanks out there because they were cheaper. You know, a Rhino was basically free and a Razorback was only like 35 points, if you can even believe that, but it's true. So I think that'll be a little different, but I do think armies are going to use more transports, and because they're tougher now, it could get very difficult very quickly to deal with that many vehicles, even in a list that's designed for it. So again, this was pretty suffocating. I didn't like this fact about 5th edition, and honestly, it really sucked to not be able to use more than 80% of the Craftworld Eldar army because there were so many vehicles. I don't think that's going to be the case now. I think that, you know, basically the objective kind of game and stuff like that will prevent people from using too many vehicles and too little units. But I do think these are going to be a way bigger threat. And honestly, are going to be used way more than before. So I also want to talk to you guys about a thing called Fisher Fury, and I think that tactic is back. And let me just explain the tactic to you guys. I'm probably going to do a video on this when the full rules come out and talk to you guys about kind of the sneaky little diabolical ways in which Craftworld Eldar can really mess up people's lives using transports. So this is back, and the reason why it's back is because of the fact that you can disembark after you move. And I think GW forgot why they prevented people from doing this in the first place, and because they forgot, we're going to be able to kind of abuse a couple things about this. Now, obviously, I haven't seen the full rules yet, so I don't even know if some of this stuff is possible. Maybe they have some exceptions or something like that. Like, you know, who knows, right? But basically what Fisher Fury is it's you move your transport, and when you disembark your unit, you basically move your transport long ways so that it's blocking as much room as possible. So, you know, normally you'd have your transport and you'd, you know, have it facing front ways, right? And then after you move it, you turn it to its side, which gives it more space in which it's blocking, right? And most players will know this. Just looking at the Wave Serpent, it's longer than it is wide. So you turn it to your side, and then you disembark your unit behind it. Now, if you did this with most Space Marine vehicles, you wouldn't be able to see past the actual Rhino or Razorback because it's blocking line of sight. But if you do this behind a Wave Serpent or Devilfish, and that's why they call it Fisher Fury, you can actually see under the vehicle because it's a skimmer, right? So you get behind the vehicle, you shoot through your own vehicle into the enemy unit because you can draw line of sight to it, and then you're protected from charges during the next turn. And with tougher vehicles, your opponents are going to have a harder time killing that Wave Serpent. On top of that, if your opponent charges into the Wave Serpent and manages to kill it, you're not going to have enough room to consolidate, considering that consolidation stays at 3 inches. You're not going to have enough inches or distance to consolidate into the shooting unit behind the Wave Serpent. So this protects your unit from assaults. Now, there's another little dirty trick that you can do now because you can take units of 5 and you can just basically fit any number of units into a transport. The rules for transports used to be that you could only fit 1 unit in there. But now, since we can fit multiple units, we can have 2 units of 5, for example, in a Wave Serpent. What you can do is you can drop out your unit of, let's say, 5 Dire Avengers right behind the Wave Serpent using the Fisher Fury tactic. And then, if an enemy assaults into your Wave Serpent and kills it, guess what pops out of that Wave Serpent afterward? Howling Banshees, Seer Council, Striking Scorpions. And if those Terminators make it into consolidation range with those models, which they probably will, because, you know, again, the Wave Serpent has enough width to where you can be out of engagement range, but the Terminators will probably have to consolidate into them. Your Howling Banshees are going to get a free round of attacks against them. Your Striking Scorpions are going to get a free round of attacks against them. You guys get the idea. So I don't know exactly how consolidation in combat works just yet. I'm going to have to read the rules on that. But if it works like similar to how it does now, that's going to be pretty big bad news for a lot of assault armies out there. Because not only are they going to have to chew through the Wave Serpent, but they're also going to have to suffer a round of attacks from a very effective combat unit like Howling Banshees. And when it's your turn, your Howling Banshees are going to strike back and probably eliminate that unit, right? So I think this has pros and cons, obviously. I think assault armies are looking to be a lot weaker than they were before, sadly, because of these new rules that are coming out. But we'll also just have to wait and see. We don't know exactly how the combat phase works, so we're just going to have to kind of sit tight and see how it works. If it works the same as it does now, I think there's going to be a lot of little things that you can do with transports now to make it, especially with Eldar and honestly Tau transports, there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of make it harder for opponents to be able to assault you. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, but that's a little bit concerning for assault-heavy armies. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about and just kind of have you guys think about how cool this could be is the threat range that's going to be on Wave Serpents and Falcons. So if you have even a unit of Fire Dragons in there with range 12 weapons, you can move 16 inches forward with a Falcon or Wave Serpent. You disembark 3 inches and then you shoot your weapons. So essentially you're getting a 19-inch movement with your Fire Dragons or Dire Avengers, and then you're shooting at your full range with no modifiers. So that's going to be pretty insane. And that's going to allow Wave Serpents and Falcons to give units like Fire Dragons a turn 1 presence on the board. So you don't even have to put them in reserve anymore. I know a lot of people were saying, well, I hope that these new rules don't replace Cloud Strike and stuff like that. I know my Uthway buddy said something like that Cloud Strike is probably going to go away now. At least he thinks it is. And maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see on that again. But even if it does go away, deploying on the board now might be a better move 9 out of 10 times, because you can choose where you go, for one. And for two, you don't have to worry about any Auspex scan type of effects, which we know, by the way, are going to be present in this edition. So you don't have to worry about that. You can simply just move forward, dump your Fire Dragons out, and shoot basically anything on the board because our Wave Serpents and Falcons have such a high movement. So I think that's going to be absolutely insane, and I think you're going to have a lot of armies out there that are built around this premise of moving forward your vehicle, dumping your troops out, and being able to shoot at different angles to either bypass obscuring terrain or stuff like that. So having said that, I also think that screening units are going to be very important. So those units with advanced positions or the infiltrate ability are also going to be important to being able to stop this stuff. Now, here's the other great thing about Eldar vehicles. Eldar vehicles do not care about your screening units because they can just fly right over them. So if an Imperial Guard battalion is trying to move forward their mechanized chimeras, they're not going to be able to move past your troops, right? Your Rangers or whatever you have blocking them, or whatever other armies have blocking them, right? Like scouts or things like that. But armies like Eldar and Dark Eldar just, quite frankly, aren't going to give a damn. They're just going to fly right over your units, and they're going to shoot what they want to, and then your scouts are probably going to die from something else, right? So, yeah, to be honest with you, I think Eldar and Dark Eldar are going to be in a very strong place in 10th edition with the mechanized game. And I think we're going to be able to play that game very well if the rules allow for it. Okay, so in conclusion, overall, I really do like these changes because they make every transport seem unique in some way and allow for some flexibility in unit selection. So again, orc shooting might actually be a thing again in orc mechanized lists, which is really cool. I think orcs do need some shooting love. Their shooting is not very good. Oftentimes when you face orcs, you're just fighting a pure combat army, and I think because this edition is going to be very shooty based, or at least it seems like it so far, giving assault armies an alternative to combat is a good thing. And as for the Falcon specifically, I think it gives a really good buff to the unit that disembarks from it. Rerolls to wound, having basically a mini Doom is awesome. And I definitely see it seeing a lot of play in 10th edition. I think people are going to be getting multiple Falcons. I would say probably 2 or 3 Falcons in a list would be common. Maybe with Fire Dragons in them, we'll see. But that's looking to be a pretty strong combination, and we don't even know if Wave Serpents have the same ability yet. So Wave Serpents, we're just going to have to wait and see on that, but they could be very strong as well. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for today. I'm going to have a video coming out later this week, probably during the weekend, to be honest with you, covering the new terrain reveal. It's not going to be a big video because I think for the most part it is the same. Dense cover is gone, and units with a 3-up save can't actually benefit from light cover, but it's basically just light cover all over the place. And obscuring terrain with ruins is still in the game. So line of sight blocking terrain is still in the game, thank goodness. However, most of the terrain is now changed to just giving you basically light cover. But the good news is that units with a 3-up or better save can't benefit from it. So guess who benefits from that? Craftworld Eldar and Dark Eldar. So, look forward to that. Look forward to being able to have, cover on your Rangers, cover on your Aspect Warriors for the most part. Not all of them, but most of them. And laugh with glee as your power armored opponents cannot benefit from the same thing. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for today. Have a good one. Thank you to all my patrons who have supported the channel over the last months. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support. I will leave those links, the Patreon and PayPal links, in the description for those of you who want to support the channel further. And that's going to be it, you guys. Really excited for the new edition and hope you guys are too. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.